Hey guys, I've got the dream job for you. What if you could get paid to walk in the woods and travel? You can. I did it for years. From the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, Texas Hill Country to Minnesota. I've been there. I've done that. I learned the flora and the fauna, and I got paid to look at trees and climb mountains. My name is Rob Kaiser. This is the All Around Growth Podcast. And in today's live stream, I'm going to tell you how you can do the same. I'm also going to share with you some different ways that you could approach doing this that would allow you to make and save a lot of money and do so quickly. And while this episode may not be applicable for those with families or people who own homes, this episode is for someone who doesn't necessarily have kids or pets and has the freedom and desire to roam. This type of work is not limited necessarily to those who are in peak physical condition, but it often does require strenuous hiking and some technical aptitude. So, unless you're physically limited and have no desire to engage with technology, um, you can do this. So, even if you don't know anything about trees, I'm going to tell you how to learn about them and do so quickly and do a few months of grunt work before you hit the road and make the real money, because doing that prep work is well worth it. And, but before we dive into all of that, and I tell you how to get paid to walk in the woods and travel, I'm going to take a moment to introduce the show itself and the sponsors. Like I said, my name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. Today is Friday, December 2nd, 2022, and we are live streaming episode number 477 of the podcast. And for those of you who are new to the show or maybe who are returning after a break, the only constant of this show in my life is change. Throughout the course of the All Around Growth podcast, we've covered a lot of ground. What began as a passion project form of talk therapy has morphed into a show where we find our purpose through trying to find balance in life. A show where you join me with my family on our small farm and homestead, where we talk about a variety of topics, generally focused on what I call all around growth. A show where we take action on our discussion by setting goals in multiple areas of life. And in permaculture talk, we could consider this podcast and the things that we talk about here our zone zero. Excuse me. This is also a show where I recently learned that in order for our purpose in life or our calling to be fulfilled, we must look at life as a whole, right? Success is never just about career or financial areas. We talk about setting goals for success and balance in family, social, physical, and spiritual areas of life as well. And we rotate through these 7 different topics routinely now as part of the show. And the inspiration from that comes from the methodology laid out in the simple and free goal setting workbook, which is linked to in the description and will also be linked to in the podcast show notes. All right. So speaking of links in the description and the show notes, you will also find links to our show sponsors. Now, first of all, we have Food Forest Farms, who has been a big contributor to the change and transition in the show. Thanks to the support of Food Forest Farms, we are bringing the All Around Growth podcast in video form to new audiences on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and more. So many thanks to Food Forest Farms, which is the home of air roasted specialty coffee, a fun hip camp, and a cozy Airbnb. So check out everything that's going on over at Food Forest Farms at foodforestfarms.com. And today's show is also sponsored by York Meadow Farm. And as a matter of fact, for those of you who are watching the live stream out there, you may be wondering about the different background you are seeing. And that is because I am here at the cabin in the homestead, um, or here in the cabin at the homestead. Now, mom and dad are plugging away at work, running errands, and doing their thing. And I am here recording because it looks like our temporary solution for internet out to the barn where my office is, with a direct burial of the Cat 6 line in the ground and running through two different doors, has finally begun to fail. And likely because over the past 6 months, 7 months now, since participating in the Great Resignation and leaving my day job, these doors are being used much more frequently, but I digress. At any rate, the time has come to finally execute on the long-term solution for internet and Wi-Fi access throughout the barn. So be sure to stay tuned for future episodes on how we end up running and updating that infrastructure. Coming soon. At any rate, York Meadow Farm sponsors the show because if it wasn't for the farm and homestead here, the podcast would not be what it currently is. And here on the homestead at York Meadow Farm, we produce handcrafted batches of probiotic rich fermented foods and natural bath and body products scented with pure essential oils. And much of the growth and development of the farm, especially with the online store, has taken place on account of inspiration and encouragement from many of you guys out there in the audience. And so to say thank you for all the support over the past year or so, and especially over the past few months as we've gotten this online store up and running, my parents and I are offering the very best discount for the online store to you. So check out the online store at yorkmeadowfarm.com and enter the discount code allaroundgrowth at checkout. And I would just encourage you to please consider purchasing products that you likely already use or consume from us. And if you're not already using or consuming them, maybe you should. I'm no doctor and can't make any health claims, but people say our stuff is good and good for you. So links to everything, all of that will be in the show notes and the description. And if you're watching right now, it already is. Now, what if you could get paid to walk in the woods and travel? All right. That sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's not. You can get paid to walk in the woods and travel. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I did it. So that you can use this strategy to accelerate your own exit plan towards freedom and living the life that you dream of. All right. So for ease of talking points, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reference my own LinkedIn profile. Okay. And this may be interesting. To see how I can do this. But I'm going to share with you my own journey throughout the green industry, and ultimately how I landed in the position where I was walking in the woods and traveling and getting paid for it. So anyone out there watching in the live stream, you guys are welcome to comment, ask questions, and if you are watching, drop a comment, let us know where you're watching from. So give me a second here and let's see if I can effectively learn how to present this so you can read along with me and also see exactly what I'm seeing so that you can learn by seeing, and that will provide some additional detail to what it is that I'm talking about. And after I review my own background, what I'm going to do is share some insight with you that will allow you to use a similar strategy, but by modifying the approach that I took, right? You can literally double the profit that I made at this time. All right, so this sounds kind of weird, but let's give this a shot. And I am going to, oh boy, it's not letting me. Yeah, okay. We'll give it a shot. Did I do it? This is one thing that I did not actually expect to have happen. Okay, there we go. Here we go. This is the best I can do, guys, so bear with me. Okay, so what I did way back when, before I started this this journey of walking in the woods and getting travel or getting paid to travel, I first had to, or if this is what you want to do, you have to understand trees. You have to know how to identify them, learn how they grow, and basically identification is key. Okay, so what's a good way to learn how to identify trees quickly if you don't have any experience? Well, one thing that you can do is work at a nursery and garden center. Okay. By working at a nursery and garden center, like I did at Cahoon Nursery way back in the day, over 20 years ago, I mean, just take a look at the description of what the nursery does. We offer by far the widest selection of plant material in our area, with hundreds of varieties of trees, shrubs, perennials, and annuals, and well over 600 varieties of hostas. Okay. We're less interested in perennials in order to learn how to get paid and walk in the woods and travel. But without a doubt, if you work one season at a garden center throughout the spring and summer, and even into the fall, you know, as the leaves drop and you're putting the trees away, that allows you to quickly learn and identify and see patterns and learn all sorts of things about trees and the differences between red maples and silver maples, and the differences between, you know, red oaks and white oaks, right? These are all important things to understand. The differences between oaks and maples. All right, we're even less interested in, you know, whether it's a red oak or a pin oak or whatever, than we are oak or maple or poplar or whatever. You see, so we just need to understand and learn this stuff, and a great way to do that is through doing working in a nursery and garden center. You can also get the same experience through working on a landscape crew, which I've done. I've also worked on, you know, my first experience working on an organic farm was almost 20 years ago as well, but that's another story for another time. You know, landscaping and ground maintenance, those are great ways to learn a little bit, but I think the optimal way to get experience in understanding what trees are is working as working in a garden center, doing retail sales. Once you have an understanding of trees and a basic understanding of technology, then you are ready to take the next step. And this is where you can get paid to walk into the woods and travel. And what I'm talking about is utility forestry. And this can open the door into urban forestry and a number of other things. But utility forestry and vegetation management is something that not a lot of people think about when it comes to walking in the woods and getting paid to travel. So for those of you out there who may not know what I'm talking about, I did this from the early 2008 and worked as a utility forester and throughout the eastern United States for several years, then in Southern California and throughout the central Southwest area, Texas, Louisiana, and was even up into Iowa and Wisconsin, Minnesota for parts of time. So there's a lot of ways that there's a lot of things that you can do with this career that will take you places. All right. So what I need to do is present a different screen so that we can actually see what a utility forester is. Okay. So what is a consulting utility forester and how do you become one? All right. A consulting utility forester inspects vegetation surrounding utility infrastructure. As a consulting utility forester, your responsibilities may involve patrolling an area or performing surveys to find potential hazards such as trees or brush in contact with power or gas lines. You also notify the electric company, landowner, or other parties when they need to prune or remove vegetation for safety reasons. You may evaluate and audit current removal and pruning plans, as well as work in the field overseeing trimming and removal operations. You may also collect data while becoming in the field. What I'm reading comes from ZipRecruiter, okay? And what ZipRecruiter suggests as far as how to become a consulting utility forester. A consulting utility forester is an expert in forestry. The educational qualifications for this career include an associate or bachelor's degree in forestry, urban forestry, or a related subject. Some employers may also require consulting foresters to have previous experience trimming trees near utilities or performing arborist duties in urban environments. Professional certification is not required, but you can obtain a certificate from the International Society of Arboriculture, which offers a tree risk assessment qualification or a utility arborist certification to help boost your job prospects. Okay. I will say that being a certified arborist doesn't hurt. It's a good thing. It's super easy to obtain that certification. And pay a few extra bucks and take a few extra tests. You've got your utility arborist certification. Those two things are good. All this stuff about educational requirements is nonsense. All right, it's nonsense. And the reason I say that is because over time I worked myself into a position where I was a manager hiring people in who supposedly needed these requirements that I didn't even have myself. Okay, so what you do and the results that you deliver, that's what really matters. And all of this stuff about education and all of that, leave it alone. If someone wants you to have that education, if an employer wants you to have that education, and you're already there, they'll figure out a way to pay for it. But more often than not, what you do is what matters. And that those letters behind your name or whatever certificate or documentation your name is on indicating that you've done such and such, as an employer and someone who's actually done this in the past, I don't care, right? So, I'm not going to get into this. What is the difference between a consulting utility forester and a utility arborist? Because what you do, and we'll look at some job examples in a second, but I wanted to share that with you because not everyone understands what a consulting utility forester is and what a consulting utility forester does. So like we said, a consulting utility forester inspects vegetation surrounding utility infrastructure. All right, think transmit. So basically, when you're a utility forester, you oftentimes work in either transmission or distribution. Transmission are the big power lines that come out of the substations and go to, or come out of the big power stations and then go out to smaller substations, which then transmit energy or distribute energy to businesses, residences, homes, and things like that. And those smaller lines that run along the streets and power poles and transformers that look like garbage cans, those are distribution lines. Okay. So the big ones that run across the countryside, those are transmission lines. And then we've got distribution lines. Either are cool, but if you want to get paid to walk into the woods and travel, you want to look at transmission utility forestry. Okay. And what that oftentimes consists of is project work for different utilities doing assessments on their entire systems. And sometimes these utilities are big, for example, let ITC, which may be under a different name now, but well, let's talk about like Duke Energy, for example, down south. Duke Energy runs throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, all throughout the South and Southwest. And, as you move throughout the lines, you are basically getting paid by the company you're working for, who's maintained the contract with the particular utility. And as a consulting utility forester, you are paid to stay in a hotel, generally getting paid a per diem expense to travel and perform work on these lines. A lot of the transmission lines run back country. And yes, you do have to communicate with people, the utility landowners from time to time, but there are many days where you don't see a single soul. And oftentimes the data that you're collecting and submitting is all online and oftentimes real time. So it's a different world than it was 10 years ago, but presumably the manner in which the data is collected is the same. It's just that the technology being used is different. So you can travel, have your travel expenses paid for, and ultimately, get paid to do it. Now, had I done this differently, I was on the road so much for months at a time that there was really no need for me to maintain residency in an apartment, even though at certain times I did that, but wasn't home for long periods of time. So, on top of this, oftentimes there's a company vehicle involved. So if you have your own vehicle and you're doing this project work, you have a lot of freedom in your spare time to go out and have your own personal adventures. And, there's a lot of pros to this. So if we want to look at opportunities that are out there for utility forestry, let's just take a look and do that. We'll see what particular what's out there in the world of utility forester. So if we just search for utility forester, we'll see a number of jobs with a number of companies. ACRT is a solid company that's been around. Davie Resource Group, which I spent a significant amount of time for. I'm actually wearing an old jacket from them. That's a great company. I have a lot of respect for the Davie Tree Expert Company, and the Davie Resource Group is a small branch of that. Okay. And it's gotten increasingly larger over the years. And, for those interested in utility forestry, I fully endorse Davie Resource Group. I also have experience with ACRT. I also, I've done a lot of work with all of these companies over time. ECI, environmental consultants. There are positions directly with utilities like AEP, Louisville Gas and Electric Company. Asplin Tree Expert is another company that's been around for ages. CN Utility Consulting is a newer company. Right Service, they also, like Davey, Arbormetrics is a newer company, very cool. I know some people that ultimately left and worked for Arbormetrics to help grow that company. You see, there's a lot of opportunities, but when we scroll back up here and take a look at, this consulting utility forester, these are like entry level positions. All right. So if we look at this consulting, we're starting at $18, $23 an hour. All right. And the qualifications are minimal. Certified arborist, preferred, not necessary. Tree care, preferred, not necessary. Benefits for companies like this are quite good. And I'm just going to read this. Take ownership of your future. Join one of the largest employee-owned companies in the nation while growing your career in a dynamic industry. Davey Resource Group has a unique culture that focuses on, okay, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all this. But what you'll do: successfully contribute to all aspects of vegetation management, planning, and analysis. Utilize innovative technology and practices to help major utility providers deliver safe and reliable power and maintain national security. Inspect and assess vegetation in right-of-ways for compliance standards and construction work plans. Identify tree and brush control work and protection zone recommendations. Collect data and document using handheld computers. Assess terrain, habitat, and environmental conditions, and support IVM projects, integrated vegetation management projects. A lot of what we do as foresters is simply data collection. And like I said, what you need is a love of the outdoors and the ability to work and hike in rugged terrain and inclement weather. Many a day has been in my past where you are out there in the rain collecting data, trying to keep everything dry. And oftentimes back then it was on paper before computers, which was always fun. But when there's a will, there's a way. Now there's GIS technology, and the ability to read and follow GIS data and maps and work independently is critical. If you have the ability to lead, what this ends up working into, and that's what happened to me because the opportunity was there and I capitalized on it. But when you're out there working with, generally you're teamed up with a partner, you've got a couple teams working to complete a project, and generally those teams need a field supervisor. Someone comes up through the ranks, becomes the field supervisor. The field supervisor is good enough that can ultimately manage several teams. And, if field supervisor becomes project supervisor, becomes, project coordinator, managing a territory. And you take it from there. You can go as high as you want until you reach the high back leather chairs if you desire. But you can stay a contract utility forester for years and effectively live on the road and work projects for a few months, take a month off, take a few months off. A lot of these projects are on demand and on call. Some of the work is inconsistent but long in duration, and it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to gain experience and be outside, learn about technology, and just do cool things, have cool experiences, meet cool people, and literally get paid to walk in the woods and travel. The getting involved in utility forestry, that was my initial exposure. My very first project was doing a transmission line inspection in North Carolina for a period of a few months in and around the Piedmont area, Western North Carolina and South Carolina. And that led to another project Indiana, Illinois, Ohio area. And that led to another project out in Massachusetts, which was a FEMA project, a storm debris cleanup project, which was a wild experience. That led to something out in Iowa, up towards Wisconsin, Minnesota, which led to something back in Ohio, and then in Chicago, and then out in California, and down to Texas. So you can go anywhere. You can do anything you want, because anywhere there's, well, I was going to say anywhere there's people, there's electricity, but oftentimes that electricity needs to go where there are no people to get to where there are. And those remote areas are oftentimes the problematic areas because they are remote, and someone needs to go out there and inspect them. And that someone can be you. So, if you're looking for a change, this is a supremely viable option. And I would definitely encourage you to give it some thought and consideration. If it sounds cool, then step one is find a garden center, learn your trees. And when it comes to the actual application process, all right, I want to share with you my own approach to getting a job. And I think learning about everything in the manner in which I showed you is great. Obtain that information, but it was easier for me because I was here in Ohio, and the Davie branches offices are here in Ohio. And I simply went to the office and asked where the manager's office was. And I walked back to his office and I introduced myself and explained why I was interested in the position, what I had to offer, and why I thought he should hire me. And I think that's a good approach. I think approaching people directly and bypassing the screening process, because a lot of times what people are screening for is if you meet the actual requirements. I didn't, and you know what? My employer didn't care. The client didn't care, because I delivered. And if you can, and you're confident in your ability to do so, but don't have the degree, don't let it hold you back. Go work for a garden center, get some experience with trees, and then go find someone and go talk to my mom.
Hi, Rob. Morning, everybody.
Mom says good morning. You want to say hi on the live stream? There's very few people watching, but okay. Anyways, this is the live stream. And for those of you guys in the podcast land, this is how live streams work. But yeah, like I was saying, if a change of pace, change of career, a change of life is of interest to you, do the work now, get your finances straight, and go work in a garden center for a year, learn your trees, and then go be a forester and have some experiences, life experiences that you really can't have anywhere else outside of that. See things that you've never seen, go places you've never been, and have the time of your life. That, my friends, is how you walk in the woods, get paid, and travel. And you can literally do it without having a home. So I don't know, guys. That's all I've got. And I hope that you have a great weekend. I look forward to catching up with you on Monday when we talk about a market recap from the farmers market this week. And easy for me to say. And we will be at Richardson Farms tomorrow from 10 a.m., if I'm not mistaken, until 1 for the very first winter market of the season. So stay tuned on Monday for an update on that. And like I said, have a great weekend. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.